9:17.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast
Suckling on the teat of tech.
with Paul Brislen.
Yes, that's what we like to do. Suckle on the teat of tech with Paul Brislen, talking high tech at Paul Brislen's Tech Week. In fact, this is our first time back for 2010. Hello to you, Paul.
Hello, season's greetings.
Season's greetings to you too. You were asking me off here, was Santa good to me, tech-wise? I don't think I've got any gadgets or anything like that. I ended up building myself a new computer. I did that over the holidays.
See, that's particularly cool.
Yeah. What did you do? What did you get?
Oh, no, we had a particularly low-tech Christmas and went camping on the Coromandel Peninsula to a place where I'm not going to tell you the name of because it is unspoiled and has no running water and no power and no cell phone coverage and was just glorious. A proper Kiwi Christmas.
No technology at all.
No, except for the tent, which was remarkably good. So very pleased about that.
Good.
Yes.
So back into another tech year, and it's been a cracker because we've already had CES.
Well, we have the big consumer electronics show in Vegas.
Yeah, and Google had their big announcement, the big Nexus 1 phone.
That's right. So you'll see more Google goodness on the mobile devices this year. I think really this is the year of the Android, isn't it? Google's mobile operating system.
Yeah.
There will be plenty of devices, plenty of application development work, and that's a very good thing for all concerned, I think, especially the punters.
I wasn't going to ask you, but put on that Vodafone harness and tell me, can we see the Google Nexus 1 on the horizon at all coming to New Zealand?
Well, Vodafone Group up in the UK has signed some kind of deal with Google. They will be rolling it out through some European countries in the first wave. And that's all I know.
Okay.
But I would say, given that they're getting it, then at some point I'm sure it will find its way to New Zealand.
I cannot wait. That will be my first smartphone.
Stand by. Will it? Yeah. They look gorgeous, don't they? Made by HTC. A beautiful bit of kit. I'm going to bypass the iPhone. I don't see any point anymore. No, you've moved on. Yep. Emotionally. I'm going to let go. It's not going to happen for me. It'll be very interesting, won't it? It's kind of like the old PC versus the Mac debate all over again in a different space. Do you want an Apple which is a closed environment, managed, maintained, and quite structured, versus hey, just buy a bit of kit and do what you like with it? Yeah. And I can well see the same kind of paradigm playing out in the mobile space as well, which will be bags of fun.
Talking about iPhone, you've got a bit of iPhone news for us.
iPhone news, yes. The iPhone's now a lifesaver, although I'm sure plenty of people out there in the world will tell you that. A photographer who was in Haiti just before the earthquake, Dan Woolley, was caught up in it all. Caught in a lift shaft. He spent 65 hours trapped in the rubble. He had his digital camera, which he used a little the focus light from that to check out his wounds and his surroundings, because he was completely trapped in pitch black. And his iPhone, of course, had Pocket First Aid and CPR, which is an application I've downloaded on his recommendation, which basically saved his life.
Wow.
He was able to look up what to do when you've got a seeping gash wound in your leg and a head injury. Yeah. He took care of himself as best he could in the situation, and then looked up things like you may consider, these symptoms mean you're possibly going into shock. Make sure you don't fall asleep, so he set the alarm on his phone to keep him awake. Really quite an astonishing tale, especially given the standard battery life of my iPhone.
Yeah, he'd be worried about that.
I have to say 65 hours would be really rather good.
What hasn't been explained to me is how these cell phone networks were able to stay up, because there was utter devastation there, right?
There was. And the beauty of cell phone networks at that kind of level is that they are built to withstand particular points falling over. Yeah. We were quite lucky here in New Zealand that 2 Degrees is owned by the same company that owns one of the big networks in Haiti. And John Stanton, who's one of the founders, was through New Zealand a couple of days ago. And he talked about this. They were very lucky. Their main switch building was undamaged, in effect, and they were able to keep operating. A lot of the cell sites were wiped out, of course, but they were able to get things back up and running pretty sharpishly, which is, comms is essential in this kind of environment. And we're forever testing disaster recovery plans around that kind of thing.
And so that's how all the social media updates got out.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, these days you're not sitting at your computer when these things happen. You're fleeing for your lives, and people seem to just take their cell phones with them without even realising, I think, in a lot of instances, that they're still carrying them.
Yeah.
So that's how news gets out, and it really has changed the way relief organisations operate these days, because they can have good comms on the ground from fairly early on.
Hey, staying with Mac stuff, Apple are going to be announcing something next week. They have put together an event that they've invited media to in San Francisco. But no one knows what it's going to be.
No, but there's plenty of speculation about it, although it does seem to be narrowing down quite dramatically. There's a lovely, one of the big tech sites is Gizmodo, and they've got a lovely page, The Exhaustive Guide to the Apple Rumours. And as far as anybody can tell, it's likely to be some kind of tablet device.
Now, I'm currently looking at a picture of a tablet, an Apple tablet, what it could look like.
It looks like a giant, flattened, stretched iPhone, probably the size of your laptop screen.
Yeah. What is this? Where does this image come from?
Well, this, if you're looking at the Apple Insider one, that is just a mocked-up image of, somebody's decided, I know what it'll look like. So they've stuck a screenshot from an Apple Mac onto an iPhone and then made it look bigger.
Right.
Over at Gizmodo, they've got a range of these kinds of images as well, put together by all kinds of people. The beauty of a tablet, or a slate, as everybody was hoping it would be called, sadly it looks likely that if this is what rolls out, it will be called an iPad, which, just no.
Do we need
no,
this
Apple,
thing?
No.
Do we need it?
An iPad? I've got to say, this thing looks gorgeous. If you imagine all the functionality of an iPhone with the power of a laptop, and no keyboard. It's purely a giant, probably an organic LED screen, so it looks sumptuous. It looks incredibly thin, a lot like the MacBook Air, and it is touch screen, multi-touch screen as well, so you can do the full Minority Report, Star Trek typing on a screen, and everything just copes kind of carry on.
See, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure I needed the iPhone, and now I'm not so sure I need a larger iPhone.
Well, no. If you think about the single biggest growth area in computing at the moment is the netbook.
Yes, I've got one of those.
Yep. So this will fit neatly into that area, and you can well imagine that all of those designers and marketing people and advertising executives will insist that their laptop be thrown in the bin and that they get one of these, because they can write on it and type on it and do anything they like with it, just like you would with an iPhone. You won't be able to move for them if this is, in fact, what gets launched.
Okay.
Next week, 27th of January.
And finally, what's the latest between Google and China?
Google and China, well, this has just been astonishing to watch. Google has accused China of trying to hack its infrastructure, its corporate infrastructure, to gain access to Gmail accounts. This is the Chinese government. We're not talking about somebody in China, but the Chinese government. They've responded by saying we will no longer filter searches on Google inside China. China's responded by saying that's illegal and you have to abide by the laws. The whole thing has bubbled up to the sort of political levels as well, with the U.S. government getting involved, and Hillary Clinton's about to make a speech on it.
Oh.
And the whole thing looks to be, probably in terms of history, a major turning point. Here we've got a corporation that controls, for a lot of people, access to the internet, fighting it out with one of the world's biggest superpowers. I mean, it's just science fiction, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. But do you think? I mean, does it look like are they even talking together, the two, Google and China? Or are they even going to work this one out?
Well, on the Google blog, the chief legal officer for Google, David Drummond, says, over the next few weeks we will be discussing with the Chinese government the basis on which we could operate an unfiltered search engine within the law, which says they intend to talk, but they're not actually talking yet.
Okay.
And in fact, they've got no chance of convincing Google to let them operate an unfiltered search engine. Google's already said no several times, quite loudly, to that. So I think they're in preparations to talk, but quite where that will lead is probably anybody's guess. It's really not the best way to try to deal with China. They can get very belligerent about such things.
Yeah.
But Google is run by geeks, and of course, geeks know exactly how the world works, and will, refuse to accept any other points of view because they are very technically minded and they know, it's like clockwork. We know exactly how things work, and you've got it wrong.
Geeks always did say they would inherit the Earth.
They did, and I think they possibly will, but I don't know they're going to get China in the process.
No.
So it could be, it's definitely one to watch. Kids will be studying this in history books from years from now, I think. It's really quite an astonishing turn of events.
We were there when it happened.
Exactly.
Thanks, Paul.
Anytime.
Auden.wordpress.com. Also check him out on Twitter as well, twitter.com/Paul Brislen. 24 minutes past 9 now on Kiwi.